Hey there, Eli coming at you to show off the newest saltwater shipment of fish and invertebrates that we got. You guys might have saw us putting those away in an earlier video, but now everything's had a few days to settle in and everything is doing quite nicely. So I figured it was time to update our inventory and show you guys what we got in. All right, this first tank up here still has a Desjardins sailfin tang that's been here maybe a month now. He's doing quite well and got some decent size and weight to him. There's also a yellowtail fusilier. He is quite small at the moment, but he won't be small for long. This is definitely a fish that's more appropriate for a larger fish only or a more aggressive reef tank, but an interesting fish nonetheless. And a blue devil damselfish. Down bottom, we still have this devil lionfish that's been here a little while. He is eating frozen krill for us quite well, so he's been doing decently. There's also a Diana's hogfish and a barred moray eel that have been here a little while, as well as a decent-sized lagoon goby and an algae bunny. Up next, this tank has a beautiful orange spot rabbitfish, a McCosker's flasher wrasse, a nice little fine eye butterfly. There's also a few smaller fish in here, a bicolor blenny, a cleaner wrasse, and a six-line wrasse, as well as a small orange shoulder tang. Down bottom, we have a small blonde naso tang, a lagoon goby, a small purple firefish, and another algae bunny. This tank's got a really neat oddball fish in it that is an orbiculate batfish. This guy is about to start his transition to adult form, where his fins will get a little bit shorter and he'll turn more of a silver body, but it's a really unique fish and still has a little bit of time before it completes that transition, but really appropriate for a very large aquarium if you have the room for them. Tricolor anthias have been here quite a while as well, and they are eating like pigs, looking quite healthy and happy. This tank also has a smaller to mini tang, another cleaner wrasse that's been doing quite a good job, and a Bangai cardinal fish. This next tank has another group of anthias. These are disbar anthias. These have been doing well for us as well. There is a small Desjardins sailfin tang in this tank too, as well as a beautiful little Ibley angelfish. In addition, there's a couple other small fish in this tank. There's a handful of red firefish, a bicolor blenny, and a pelvic spot wrasse. This next tank has a beautiful clown tang that's been here a little while, a nice larger Niger triggerfish, another one of those cleaner wrasses, a beautiful wide bar shrimp goby, and a really nice long fin fairy wrasse. This next tank also has a few wrasses in it, another one of those pelvic spots, and some small carpenter flasher wrasses. This tank, in addition, has a group of small hippo tangs, which would be the perfect size to start out with. There are a couple neat oddball fish in here known as a yellow eel goby. They're being quite shy at the moment, and they really are known for being shy, but a really interesting fish for a more peaceful, smaller tank. There are also a couple other types of gobies, a blue spot watchman and a diamond goby, as well as a bicolor and an algae bunny, a small citron goby, and another blonde naso tang. This tank up top here has that paddlefin wrasse that you might have seen in the previous video. It's also got a beautiful Corin angelfish that is just starting its transition. Got some good size and a nice healthy weight to him. There's also a few types of damsels in here. There's a couple zebra damsels and a couple Talbot's damsels, which happen to be one of my personal favorites, considering they are not terribly aggressive. This tank also has a small naso tang in addition to another algae bunny. This tank here has some hippo tangs as well. They are a little bit larger than that last group. These guys are probably closer to 3 inches from tip to tail. There's a handful of red scooter bunnies in this tank, as well as a Vlamingi tang that's been here a little while. This tank also has a very healthy looking, active, cleaner wrasse, as well as a tribal bunny and another diamond goby, and a few yellow chorus wrasses that are still sleeping in the substrate at the moment. This tank up top here has some Springer's damsels, which are another personal favorite, considering they are also quite peaceful for a damselfish. In addition, there is a beautiful little powder blue tang. There's also another naso tang in this tank as well. This tank also has a cleaner wrasse, an algae bunny, and a bicolor bunny. This bottom tank here also has hippo tangs. These happen to be yellow bellies, and they're about the same size as that first group of tangs, maybe 2 to 2.5 inches. There's another bicolor bunny in this tank, a cute little Aptasia eating filefish, and a candy hogfish, which is a cool, more aggressive wrasse species that doesn't get terribly large. This tank has a diamond goby as well if you're looking for a sand sifter. There's another pelvic spot wrasse, an algae bunny, and a nice group of beautiful green chromis. This next tank here has another group of anthias. These happen to be lyre tails, which are a beautiful classic species of anthias and quite easy to keep. These are all females at the moment, but if you plan on adding a small group, you'll most likely end up with a male and a handful of females. This tank has a couple domino damselfish as well, a beautiful chocolate mimic tang, a really nice pyramid butterfly, which is a borderline reef-safe butterfly fish, something that we don't get very often. Down bottom here, we also have another lagoon goby and a good grouping of pajama cardinalfish that are on the small side. Be a great opportunity to grow them out with your tank. There's another pelvic spot wrasse as well as a 6-line wrasse in this tank. A cute little copper band butterfly that is on the smaller side, maybe about 3 inches in length. This tank also happens to have a very cute longhorn cowfish that is quite small, probably less than an inch in length at the moment. There's another one of those eye bleed angelfish and a beautiful little juvenile emperor angel. All right, so that about sums it up for all the new saltwater fish that we got on this last shipment, but let's go check out the invert tanks to see what else we got in. This first tank up here has a bunch of miter snails that we got a little while ago. Kind of an interesting snail with a beautiful shell, but not always the most appropriate for a reef tank setting. There's also a good handful of Necarious snails up here, as well as some Mexican turbo snails. This tank also still has a small handful of silver lip conchs, which are a great sand sifter. There's a bunch of peppermint shrimp if you run into aptasia problems. In addition, we have a few types of starfish up here. Those larger Nardoa stars are generally considered reef safe. And then we have a few non-reef safe options for starfish as well. This next tank here has a beautiful arrow crab. If you haven't seen the video that we previously did on those, definitely give that a look. These are an interesting animal. They are really good control for things like bristleworms and some of your other nuisance animals in the reef tank. So they can kind of be a useful animal, but just something fun to see in a lot of those aquariums as well. This tank still has a good number of emerald crabs if you're looking for something to handle bubble algae, as well as some beautiful star Astrea snails that just came in. This tank also has a small number of turbo snails as well, and some beautiful red-lipped conchs if you're looking for something to sift the sand. Additionally, there should still be an orange spot watchman goby in this tank, another handful of small Necarious snails, and some pincushion urchins for algae control. Up next, this tank has a good handful of bumblebee snails, which don't only have a beautiful shell, but are really useful in helping control vermitid snail populations in your tank. This tank also has some of those Mexican turbo snails, as well as Necarious snails. There should also still be a harlequin shrimp if you're looking to get rid of pesky starfish. There's a couple Sally Lightfoot crabs that could help with hair algae problems, and some large blue knuckle hermit crabs, as well as some beautiful fighting conchs that can help sift your sand. This next tank here has a bunch of really fun invertebrates. There's a handful of skunk cleaner shrimp, which are a great addition to just about any peaceful or reef tank. There are also some sand sifting starfish, as well as some other conch species. There are some fighting conchs, as well as those red-lipped conchs I showed you in the other tank. For unique stuff, there's a couple porcelain crabs in this tank, which are really neat. They're a filter-feeding crab species that likes to host anemones, so that's a really cool symbiosis you can kind of see in your aquarium. In addition, we have a small handful of little pom-pom crabs, which also have a cool symbiosis with small anemones. They're a really interesting, fun guy to notice in your tank. However, they are quite small and quite timid, so putting them in a smaller, peaceful aquarium is much more preferable. This tank also has a good handful of red leg hermit crabs, as well as Necarious and Seraph snails. This next tank here also has some of those Mexican turbo snails, as well as some really large Halloween hermit crabs, just in time for the holidays. Really interesting, fun little guy, really good cleanup crew, and usually pretty peaceful in your aquarium. This tank also has a good number of fire shrimp that just came in, some red Linkia stars in the back there, as well as some blue eye hermit crabs, a couple small pencil urchins, and a really interesting decorator crab that's been here a few weeks. Last but not least, this tank down here has some coral banded shrimp. Those are a really fun animal for a lot of tanks that I just did a spotlight video on not too long ago. There should also be a small handful of scarlet leg hermit crabs left, as well as some turbo snails, some red and silver lip conchs. There is another harlequin shrimp in this tank, as well as a beautiful little Yasha goby that's being a little shy at the moment, but a really fun small goby for a peaceful smaller tank. This tank additionally has another handful of Necarious snails and some tuxedo urchins. It has been a while since we had the tuxedo urchins. These are a lot of people's favorite urchin for a reef aquarium because they tend to behave a little bit better than some of your others. We should have about 5 or 6 of those available at the moment if you've been looking. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope that you found something cool in our new fish shipment. If anything is standing out to you, feel free to come check us out this weekend or this following week to come see what we've got in stock. As always, feel free to leave questions, comment, suggestions in the comment section below, and keep on reefing.